Updates. We got camp updates today. Xavier Worthy, Jaden Hicks, George Karloftis, all kinds of things to talk about today. I am your host, Gary McKenzie. Let's get rolling here and talk about Chiefs camp. So we've got some camp updates for you. And the first player I want to talk about is Jared Wiley. So tight end taken by the Chiefs in the 5th round. And the first thing I want to mention is that he's been getting some reps with the ones. Now, do I think that Travis Kelce is being threatened for losing his job because of Jared Wiley? No, I do not think that, but I do think it's interesting that he's already getting run with the ones, which shows the Chiefs have some confidence in him and are interested in seeing how he looks with the starters on offense. So that's a good sign for Jared Wiley coming in very early and getting run with the ones. The next thing on camp I want to talk about is Kingsley Suamataia and Wanya Morris. They're having a camp battle to see who will get that starting left tackle role. We've talked about this so much in the past, especially on this channel here, that if the Chiefs can get a left tackle on a rookie contract for 3 or 4 years, that's really going to help the team in terms of roster management, team building, all that good stuff, because they'll be spending much less money on a player who typically gobbles up a ton of your salary cap. So the positions that the Chiefs need to hit on to continue winning these Super Bowls, continue being dominant, are wide receiver, left tackle, and then pass rusher. They've already got George Karloftis. They drafted Xavier Worthy, and they've got Rashee Rice as well on rookie deals. And now they're hoping they can hit the trifecta and get Suamataia or Wanya Morris playing left tackle for them at a high level while on their rookie contract. So these are good signs for the Chiefs front office doing the right thing, trying to save money where they can, while they have a quarterback and several other players that are, taking up a ton of cap room. So the battle between Suamataia and Wanya Morris is going to heat up as camp goes on. Once the pads come on, we'll know more about both these players. We already know a good amount about Wanya Morris, but we'll know more about Kingsley Suamataia. And as of now, Wanya Morris was getting about 60% of the reps with the ones. So take that as you will. Morris maybe is starting out with a little bit of a veteran advantage, and we'll see what happens for the rest of camp, but that's definitely a battle we're watching. Next update I want to bring up is Xavier Worthy. So Xavier Worthy caught a couple of bombs. He's caught a couple of bombs in camp. He's looked good catching the ball down the field, keeping his eye on the ball, tracking the ball. And if you remember, these are problems that the Chiefs receivers had all throughout 2023, and they really haven't had a deep threat since Tyreek Hill left, especially a player that can track the ball downfield and make adjustments while the ball's in flight and come up with the catch. And it appears Xavier Worthy has this ability, and he showcased that in college. I don't think it's something that you're going to lose once you get to the NFL. And so this has been exciting to see Xavier Worthy catch a couple deep balls from Mahomes and be able to track the ball and finish the play. A couple of bad things about Xavier Worthy, though, is that he's been missing some practices. So he started off training camp with a hamstring injury, and then, after that, he has an illness. So we'll see what happens for the rest of camp, see if that hamstring continues to linger. Early on in a career, a hamstring injury can be kind of scary because sometimes those things linger. And I heard an interesting comment on another show that sometimes when players are training to run the fastest 40 time they possibly can, it ends up hurting them in the long run, because while you're training those muscles to run a quick 40, you're not really doing football moves. You're not turning right or left. You're not accelerating. You're not cutting on a dime. You're not doing these different football-related moves, so that whenever you do finally get in football and you're doing football-related activities, you have a soft tissue injury. So that's kind of speculation, but I thought that was interesting enough to share here. So hopefully Xavier Worthy's hamstring does not turn into something serious and it's not a lingering thing that happens all year long. We'll see what happens with that, but expect the Chiefs to take it careful, to be very careful with uh, with Xavier Worthy's hamstring. They're going to take it slow. Next thing I want to add is a Hollywood Brown. While we're on the topic of Chiefs wide receivers, he's made a lot of plays in camp so far. He's caught a few touchdown passes. One such play, he was just wide open in the end zone. I think the Chiefs had a blown coverage on the defensive side. And he's looked to be a good contributor for this Chiefs team, which is good news. Next, you have Rashee Rice. Update on him. He's had multiple fumbles in training camp. He had a particularly bad day where he had 2 fumbles, and he needs to clean that up. If you remember last season, 2023, Rashee Rice had a number of fumbles throughout the year that either got lucky and bounced right back to him, or another one of his teammates landed on. He needs to clean up the ball carrying and take care of the football. And it's a good thing that this is happening in training camp, because you'd rather now learn the lesson than during regular season when the games really count and it costs you a game. So this is something that needs to be cleaned up for Rashee Rice, and I expect him to clean it up. Another update on Rashee Rice is that Andy Reid has said he hasn't heard anything in terms of a suspension for Rashee Rice. Now, that doesn't mean much, because it could be that, yeah, he hasn't heard anything, but the suspension is still coming. So we'll see what happens with that. I am expecting a 6-game suspension at the start of the season for Rashee Rice. We'll see if it's 6 games, if it's something else, but that's my first take. You can't be speeding like that on highway, racing people, acting like a crazy person, endangering others' lives, and not face the consequences. So I want Rashee Rice to face those consequences, own up, grow from it, and never do a thing like that again. And hopefully, he does get punished, and it's sufficient enough to teach him the lesson that he needs to learn. So that's the update for a few wide receivers. I have one more update for Chiefs wide receivers, and that's Kadarius Toney. So Kadarius Toney, interestingly enough, he's been practicing with running backs. He's been working the ball in the backfield, taking snaps as a running back, and I think this is an interesting usage being thought of by Andy Reid, because if you remember back in Florida, they ran the ball with him several times throughout his tenure at Florida. So it's not uncharted territory for Kadarius Toney to be taking these snaps as running back, and it might just be another way that the Chiefs front office is trying to find ways to get Kadarius Toney to have the ball in his hands where he can do things that are special. There's no question about Kadarius Toney's talent. It's all these other things, these other intangibles that he's been struggling with, and to me, this feels like a move where they're trying to keep Kadarius Toney on the roster, and they're doing everything they can to do that. Kind of my radar is saying that this is not a good situation for Kadarius Toney. He must be on the verge of being cut, or on the verge of, not being on the roster anymore. And so they're trying to do different things to experiment with him, and we'll see how they play out. But I don't think this is a good sign for Toney. And maybe if I make a video predicting who I think is going to get cut out of this wide receiver room, Toney might be one of those guys. And speaking of Toney, he got blown up in practice by George Karlaftis. And Toney caught the ball on one of the flats. I think it was the right flat. Came across the middle. And this was an unpadded practice, so they weren't in pads. And George Karlaftis hit him as he was changing his momentum and pretty much just spilled him on the ground. It wasn't the lightest touch. It wasn't like George Karlaftis was playing patty cakes out there. He hit him pretty good. And in a practice where you're not wearing pads in the NFL, that's going to make some people pretty angry. And Travis Kelce ended up giving George Karlaftis an earful. And I've seen a number of comments that I thought were interesting. Some people have said, hey, yeah, George Karlaftis should not have done that. They're not in pads, and it's kind of Bush League. And then other people have said, yeah, George Karlaftis just did what everyone in Chiefs Kingdom wants to do by shoving Kadarius Toney. And, I'm not going to take sides. I just thought those were interesting comments. And then Travis Kelce got in George Karlaftis' face, which he should have. That's your guy. That's your teammate on offense. and you shouldn't tolerate that sort of behavior. And so Travis Kelce did the right thing to stand up for his teammate. And Travis Kelce, you know, I think his teammates have to think he's just wonderful. You know, that guy never misses a chance to take a leadership role. He's been on the Chiefs long enough, and you know, just consummate professional and teammate is Travis Kelce. The next player I want to talk about in terms of things that I saw interesting in camp, Luis Rees-Zammit. He's practicing both kicking the ball off and returning kicks. So could be a special teams weapon for Dave Toub. We'll see how that goes. In the past, you know, the Chiefs have had a lot of players come up and look good in special teams, and then, you know, they end up growing in a role in the offense or defense. So, Luis Rees-Zammit, he's getting the opportunities to make this roster through special teams, and then we'll see if he can grow into other roles in the offense. And going from rugby to football is not an easy thing to do. So he is very athletic, and if he can kick the ball and he can play a little defense, then maybe with the new kickoff rules, Dave Toub could use him to kick the ball off and do some different things defensively on kickoffs. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see if, you know, Dave Toub's mad science experiment with Luis Rees-Zammit pays off. We'll see. But I think it was intriguing to see that he was kicking the ball off. I think that's more intriguing than him receiving the kickoff and being a returner. And right now the Chiefs' return room it's stockpiled. There's a lot of guys vying for spots to return both punts and kicks, and we'll see where Luis Rees-Zammit fills in that role. I don't have a horse in this race. I don't have a player that I would prefer one over the other. I do think it's interesting, though, and there's a part of me that would like to see someone other than Harrison Butker do kickoffs for this new kickoff rule to see how that plays out. The next thing I want to talk about is that Justin Reid has an injured quad. And I think a lot of times quad injuries take about 4 weeks to heal up. Who knows how bad Justin Reid's is. It might take a little bit longer. And the Chiefs are definitely going to tread lightly with him in training camp. They're not going to push him over the edge. He's going to get a lot of rest. And while he's resting that quad up, that gives an opportunity for another player to step up for the Chiefs, and that player that's been stepping up has been Jaden Hicks. He's been filling Reed's role, and he's been doing very well. In fact, catching the eye of several people on the Chiefs coaching staff. And if you remember, Jaden Hicks was an athletic freak in college. He's 6'3", I think around 210, 215, maybe 220. That's a pretty big dude for a safety. And they say that he moves very well. He doesn't look like he's moving well, you know, because of his length and his size, but whenever you get out there and you're on the field on him, people are saying, dang, this dude is quick, this dude is fast. And so probably Jaden Hicks was the steal of the draft for the Chiefs, in my opinion, in terms of finding a guy that had talent, finding a guy that had unusual size, unusual athleticism for his position. I don't know how Jaden Hicks made it to the 4th round. And we'll see how good he does and how well these people that understand the draft so well, how well their thoughts pan out if Jaden Hicks can or can't perform. So that's been interesting in camp. But that's my camp updates. I want to give everyone a quick and dirty rundown of what I've been seeing at camp so far, just in case you don't have time to run around on Twitter, and get all the updates yourself. These are the things I've been seeing. Now's your turn to let me know down in the comments. What have you seen during camp? What intrigues you? Are you going to camp this year? And then also make sure you hit that like button if you have not done so already. Also subscribe. We're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, so really needing everyone's help to get us to that goal. And I'll try to talk Ryan into doing something dumb with me if we can get to 30,000. I still need to have that conversation. But that's it. This is Gary McKenzie. Gridiron Lines, your host, signing out. Y'all have a good rest of your week and have a great weekend.